Hello, everyone. Welcome in to day one of CData's Foundations event. We're going to give people just a second to funnel in here, and then we will get started. Go ahead and bring the slides up. All right. So, again, welcome. I'm Andrew Peterson, Senior Product Marketing Manager here at CData Software. Today's Foundations focus is, of course, data and analytics, and I'm excited to kick things off with our first customer story. Joining me on stage right now is Dean Sund, data analyst at National Checking Company, also known as NCCO. Dean is a CData customer and is going to share how a century-old brand modernized from GuestChecks to cloud data. So with that, Dean, I'm going to let you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I initially grew up, I was born into the construction industry. My dad and uncle owned a construction company, so I grew up doing that. I quickly realized, seeing the physical toll it took on their bodies and others, I did not want to do that. So going into college, I went into accounting and finance. And then in the mid-90s, even before I got out of college, I started getting roles. And everyone, that was early innovation of databases with DBakes, FoxPro, other things other like that. I kept getting pulled into the database aspects of things. And my career just quickly evolved into more databases and finance.
Excellent. Well, before we learn a little bit about NCCO, I want to go ahead and walk through the agenda for today. So first, Dean's going to talk us through the challenge NCCO faced as a 100-plus-year-old company, moving from its paper-based GuestChecks products and a legacy ERP system, moving into the right moment to modernize and connect that timely, trusted data. Then we'll look at what it looked like to unify that ERP data inside of Snowflake through CData. And then we'll see outcomes, the real-time business reporting that Dean and the team have been able to spin up to power NCCO's business into its next evolution. And then lastly, Dean will give us a little bit of a peek into what's next for data at NCCO to carry it into its next 100-plus years. So Dean, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what it is NCCO's business is?
Okay. NCCO started out as just your regular old print company. We printed off food vouchers for work, housing vouchers. We also printed off punch cards for NASA. And our first innovation really occurred with what people will recognize is the guest check. The guest check was a way for the food service industry, specifically restaurants, to be able to account for their receipts at the end of the day, have an accurate count, make sure no money was pocketed. It was just a checks and balances. It was essentially early security. That really migrated NCCO from just generic printing for every industry into the food service industry.
That's a good background. So let's look a little bit more. I'm sure everyone in the audience is going to recognize that guest check order pad there on the right. How did you think about how business evolved? As you said, guest check really kind of anchored you in food service. How did that business grow? And then we'll move into the digital solutions.
Like I mentioned earlier, the guest check really gave the food service an area of accountability. You're talking back in the 1930s that this product really came to be. It really was, while it doesn't seem today, cutting edge back in the day as far as the perforations, the accountability, the different portions. And I'm sure anybody that goes out to eat ever will see this, especially if you're not in a chain restaurant. This is pretty much the standard guest check.
Right. So that was kind of a phase one evolution, as you said, modern for its day. Now let's take a look at some of your newer product offerings as NCCO's moved into serving the food service industry in a more of a digital format.
Yeah. The leadership of NCCO recognized about 15 years ago that, hey, this is not going to really work long term. We don't want to be a part of a dying business. So in-house, we created some products as well as purchased some products outside. One of those products is like Date Code Juni. It prints labels. It will be able to tell if your coolers are at the right temperature. It can house basically all your tasks that you need to do on it. It can create a checklist for the employees to make sure everything's being done for food safety. We also have another thing called Always Food Safe, which is courses that anyone can go in and take digitally. The United States as a whole has general certification that they require, but then as you go to different states, even counties, even cities like San Diego, they have different requirements. So this allows people to go in on their own time, do the courses, and be able to serve in the food service industry.
Exactly. So you have the vision, you have these newer products, but obviously to support those, you needed a stronger data foundation. Can you walk us through what the challenges were that prevented you from just flipping a switch and all your data is feeding all these new innovative products?
Yes. And what really happened is when we grew these past 15 years, everything was created in these different aspects, these different silos. We had so many different databases. When we purchased a new product, a lot of times it didn't fit into our current architecture, data architecture, so it just remained on its own. So as that kept going along and along, we have more and more management they want to be able to see consolidated reporting. They want to be able to see what's going on across the business, not in individual aspects, and they want it real time. That became a challenging aspect, if not really just impossible.
Right. And without those systems connected, then you had those reporting limitations as well. So your business stakeholders were kind of in the dark.
Correct.
All right. So let's take a look at kind of architecturally what that looked like. Can you walk us through everything that we're seeing here just to give a sense of the complexity of kind of this before state?
Well, and the nice part is you guys have sanitized it quite a bit, because honestly, and I didn't give you the full version of this because this is only about a quarter of what we have going on, but this is our biggest pieces. Our 4 pillars are an in-house product that we built out. Alexandria is both a data warehouse and it operates different systems. CISPRO is an in-house ERP system. And if you look at the index down below, the cloud, we essentially categorized everything into 4 different categories: either your cloud third party, in-house on-prem, in-house cloud, or on-prem third party. So Stripe is our payment system. Mercator houses a lot of different online ordering. Salesforce, pretty much everybody's familiar with that. Magento is also an online ordering platform. Boomi is our early attempts at some ETL migration of things from one thing into another. Epicor is another whole business that we have for labels and brand security for customers. Radius is the production element of that. And then on top of that, we have a lot of customer-driven information that we need to either, some of it gets uploaded, some of it does not, but now we have to report on all that. As right. Well as CISPRO is our main ERP that we use for, say, what we showed our GuestChecks, and Dash is really just a archival piece for that, housing a lot of the PDFs of the invoices, different things like that.
Yeah, a lot of complexity, a lot going on there. And I was remiss to not tell the audience that please do ask questions in the Q&A panel next to the chat panel off to the side of your screen. We will aggregate those, and then when we wrap this session, we will go into Q&A. So please, as Dean's talking, do add those questions. So we've set the stage kind of, I think, pretty well on what these challenges were. So now I'd like to look at how did NCCO think about the requirements for finding the right solution? What were kind of your non-negotiables as far as what a new system would have to not to just add to the sprawl, but to help you consolidate and better use that data?
Yes. One of the big things is we recognized that ETL is a 4-letter word in our place. Our department is relatively small. There's really just 2 of us doing all the work. ETL equals maintenance. So as much as possible, we wanted to get rid of any kind of ETL piece. We wanted direct loads into one place that we called, which I heard your CTO reference as a centralized data platform. We use the same terminology with that. We wanted to have our on-prem stuff go into that cloud as is. We wanted it simple. We wanted to have security. We didn't want to have to poke a hole in our firewall. For example, security is a huge issue. It's not just the banks and the hospitals and such like that are getting hit. Manufacturing is getting hit. We're getting hit multiple times a day. We didn't want another vulnerability. We didn't want to be limited. In total, by the end of this year, we'll have over 1,000 tables that are loaded into Snowflake, which ended up being our data lake of choice. We didn't want to be constrained in any way. We also wanted support for it. So that really eliminated any kind of open source solutions. We wanted to have CDC access. So we didn't ever have to hit our systems, but we do have one of our systems, as listed earlier, does not support CDC. So in that case, we're using incremental loads. I'm in the early testing of that, but everything looks to be working great with that. And we wanted something simple, quick, that we could get up and running.
Go right ahead, Dean, please.
And really, when it came down to it, the only product that we found that met all those different solutions was CData.
Right. And you mentioned that you're using Snowflake. When you and I were talking in advance of this presentation, you had mentioned that you kind of bought Snowflake and then realized, oh, there's not a mechanism to get all these data sources, especially the on-prem data in. So yeah, now please walk through what it was about CData that kind of fit these requirements.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, with Snowflake, we have a lot of options for the different cloud data, and that was a relatively easy load. But trying to figure out, okay, what was our solution going to be to get our on-prem data up there, in a safe, secure way. Like I mentioned earlier, there's only two of us, so we needed something that didn't require a lot of maintenance. We also needed something that didn't break the bank. When you start looking at all the SaaS pricing software, and you're talking over 1,000 tables, hundreds of millions of rows, there's just not a solution out there that's not going to break the bank with the current pricing models. So, and at this point in time, most were not willing to consider any kind of pricing exception. So it really led us to CData. And to be honest, it's been a smooth, even process. One of the things that I mentioned earlier too was the support piece. That's we can go into it later if anybody wants to, but I couldn't have been more happy with the support that CData has provided.
Yeah, really good context. Thank you, Dean. All right, so now we saw your messy architecture diagram earlier. Now this one looks a little bit more streamlined. Walk us through kind of how data is moving through systems today.
Yeah, so our in-house on-prem data and our on-prem third-party data is now flowing through CData into the data warehouse. We have somewhere currently over 500 tables getting populated in the data lake. CData will, from a CDC standpoint, load 150 rows, and it takes them generally anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes to keep that updated. So it's relatively fast, relatively efficient. It also solves by having it up there versus having a virtualized aspect. We're not hitting our data and causing any sort of source issues within our ERP system and slowness. That's another reason why we chose a data lake over virtualizing it.
Absolutely. All right. So one thing too, obviously, that is intended outcome is that you're equipping your business users with dashboards, right? So Let's
Yes.
now take a look at kind of, so we've got this refined architecture, and it's obviously populating your BI tool at the end of the line here. Now I want to look at, this is an example of an NCCO dashboard, one of many, of course. Can you walk the audience through what we're looking at and kind of where the data is pulling in from different sources?
Yeah, and this is one that got promoted early on. Previous to having this up and running, this was manually being created, and it took about a 2-day process of being actually created from the different systems. This allows them to come in, and it can be real time. We actually have 3 versions of this. One is real time, so it looks at 30, 60, 90, and 30, 90, 180, and 360. We also have one that looks at 1, 3, 6, and 12 months. And we have one that's future oriented. This allows them to come in quickly and say, okay, this is my sales rep. How am I doing right now? On the left looks at our units sold. On the right looks at dollar amounts. And this is a comparison of year over year. The next level down is product class. So now we can see exactly, okay, how are the different products performing? How are GuestChecks doing? How is DCG labels doing? How is DCG SaaS doing? Those different pieces. And then the last piece on here is the major customer. So we have individual customers, but then a lot of them get grouped up based on corporations or franchises. We call them major customers. This allows us to quickly see, okay, how are they doing from a high level? Each one of these now has a drill through that they can go in and get more specific details, see when was their last orders, anything else like that, see anomalies. A lot of the red on here right now is driven by one customer that happens to have a seasonality. And it's just a timing piece. If I pulled it up today, because it's now September, this was August data, it would look entirely different. But this really gives the salespeople the opportunity. And another piece we have is there's actually a PDF option out of this that they'll print off. They'll walk into their customer and they can actually go through and walk through, okay, this is what we're seeing. What are you looking at? What is your buying pattern going to be? Are you pulling back on this? Are you familiar with this product? It gives them different sales opportunities with their customers as they meet them.
Absolutely. All right, Dean. I want to make sure we have some time for questions, but I also don't want to ignore kind of what's mapped out for the future. Can you walk us through what these future data opportunities are as you look to expand this next evolution of NCCO?
Definitely. Right now, like I said, we only have 500 tables into Snowflake. That may seem like a lot, but our end result is going to be well over 1,000 from the different source systems. One of our goals of having the centralized data platform, the data lake, was to just dump everything in as much as possible. We have not done that. We've been a little bit more selective. But get everything in there, then we can figure out, okay, what do we want? Because the reality is, as soon as you decide this is what we want, management decides, hey, we want this. And now all of a sudden we don't have that loaded. We want to avoid that as much as possible. So we still have more systems to load and get moving on from that. So we want to connect and grow those data sources. We also want to get rid of a few different systems. I'm not going to mention any on here, but we want to decrement some of those systems because, quite honestly, there's just better ways to do them today and more efficiently. We can generate smarter sales. As I mentioned, we have opportunities now from the previous thing for those customers to go out. Also, with these different systems, having those meshed together, we have products that are very much adjacent, and those adjacent products provide cross-selling opportunities. Hey, this customer has this, but they don't have this. This gives a much more clearer picture on a broader scale to be able to do that. Another thing is we want to be able to give the customers direct access to their data. So when did we see it? When did it ship? When can we expect to see it? What was my ordering pattern in the past? As well as I briefly mentioned that there's a branding piece. We have a lot of franchise customers, and those franchise customers really want their branding to be supported, upheld. This can give the next generation, the next iteration of them being able to make sure that their franchises are purchasing a product that's acceptable to the corporate office.
Excellent. All right. Well, Dean, I appreciate it. Now we can move to Q&A. I saw there was an earlier question about what, excuse me, ERP and CMR you were using, and it, looks like, yeah, that's already been taken care of. If anybody else in the audience has a question for Dean or for me about CData, please do put them in the chat. Since we still have some time, Dean, I am curious, looking back, what surprised you most once you had that ERP data flowing into Snowflake? Was there an outcome you didn't anticipate?
I mean, I guess the outcome that I did not anticipate, having worked with other vendors, is we did have some hiccups along the way. A lot of them were easily solved, but I did not expect the support that I got from CData. A lot of it was, if I sent an email, it was rare that it spent more than 2 hours before I got a response back. It was dealt with quickly, timely, and some of the stuff was a little bit more complex. So we had to test it out, but they never let it die. And there was never an open issue that took more than a week. So I think that was probably my biggest surprise. And it was really on a positive aspect.
That's great. We also had a question come in through the chat that my colleague Jared gave a little bit more context about. The specific product you're using is CData Sync, which is our data pipeline tool. But Jonathan asks, how are you deploying CData for your on-prem data sources? So can you tell us a little bit about kind of where you're hosting this self-hosted version of CData Sync?
Okay. We have an in-house server that I forget what it's called, but essentially the application is essentially housed on it. We go in and we can just basically control everything from that remote access. I log into that server, I set up everything, and then I can connect directly to Snowflake. Right now, it's only used for Snowflake. I don't know if we'll be using it more in the future. Potentially, there may be some use cases for where we do use the reverse ETL. As much as I say that's a 4-letter word, and I still believe it is, there is sometimes value of being able to push back data into your internal systems, such as, hey, we're going to standardize addresses in the cloud. Do they want those addresses standardized in the system? Well, then that becomes a very good use case of that reverse ETL.
Absolutely. Frank is also asking us if we have partnerships, and we absolutely do, Frank, and we can get you more information about that after the event itself. We're short on time. One last question. I don't think I see any others in the Q&A panel, but Dean, for other mid-sized companies, and for those out there for some context, NCCO has a little over 300 employees. For those similar organizations watching this, what is the biggest lesson that you pass along about someone modernizing their ERP system or their overall data stack?
First piece, do it now, don't wait. This has been a process that was a few years in the making, and we're already seeing benefits from it. I think there's a few different Q&A pieces. There really is the question, okay, do I want to physically move the data into a data lake? The real benefits of that is now you're not putting a load on your source system, or do I want to create more?
I'm sorry to cut you off, but we're going to run out of time. So everyone can head to Trivia next. Thank you so much for joining us.